In order to reach your goals, you've got to get in shape. You need to get in shape physically. You need to get in shape mentally. You need to get in shape spiritually, because man is physical, he is mental, and he is spiritual. I, do a lot of talking about my own exercise program. I guess this is going to sound a little bit like it's bragging, and if you want to know the truth, I guess I could understand it if you were to think it was bragging. I'm 54 years old. I stayed on the treadmill at Cooper Clinic longer than any member of the Dallas Cowboy football team. I rate in the upper 2% of the health brackets of the world as far as men over 50 years old. And I rate in the upper 5% of the health brackets of the world regardless of their age. I can outrun 98% of the college kids in America on a 5-mile run. I can do things today I could never have dreamed of doing when I was 25 years old. Now, why am I putting so much stress on that? Simply because it gives me so much extra energy. I've extended my workday by a full 2 hours. You see, what happens when you exercise is you activate the pituitary gland. Now, I'm a jogger. You might prefer swimming or the bicycle or fast walking or whatever. But when you activate the pituitary gland, which is what you do when you exercise, your system is flooded with endorphins, which are members of the morphine family, but they're 200 times more powerful than morphine. And you end up on a natural chemical high as a result of it. I really urge you to get some good advice, some good counsel, as I did, but take care of your body, because your body and your mind are so closely related. They are working together. You will feel better mentally, physically, and spiritually as you take care of that body. You need to be in good shape. Now, as I say, it sounds kind of like I'm bragging, and I guess I do brag a little bit. But along about then, Dr. Cooper will say to me, "Zig, let me tell you about this 65-year-old lady. Started jogging when she was 59 years old. At this time, she has now run 10 marathons, and 2 of them are 50 miles long. And when I get up off the deck, he said, and let me tell you about this 15-year-old girl. She stayed on the treadmill, Ziglar, nearly 3 minutes longer than you did. Now, what that really means, that's kind of like running the Boston Marathon after you just finished a 10-mile marathon. That's what that really boils down to. So what am I saying? Am I really bragging on me or the 65-year-old lady or the 15-year-old girl? Not a chance. What I'm saying is that inside of you, there is such an incredible amount of potential that I'd like to see you recognize your own physical and mental and spiritual and career potential which is there. Because if you go to work to develop it, you'll be absolutely astonished at what comes out of inside of you. Step number 10, if you're going to reach your goals, you've got to literally be able to see yourself as already there. You've got to see the reaching. I kept that picture of that guy in those jockey shorts in my bathroom, literally. I looked at that thing hundreds and even thousands of times. I saw myself, I visualized myself as already being at that weight. Over a quarter of a century ago, I dreamed my dream that I would be speaking to you here today in this presentation. Oh, now I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, now wait a minute, Ziglar, this studio wasn't even here. And some of the people in the audience were not even born. No, I was not specifically thinking about this audience at this moment. But well over a quarter of a century ago, I dreamed that I would be literally going all over the world making speeches to all kinds of people in all kinds of groups everywhere. And I want to say, in those dreams, they were some more dreams. I made literally tens of thousands of speeches in my mind before I ever made one in person. You remember earlier I simply said that you've got to understand that when will meets imagination, that imagination is going to win. That's the reason a lot of people go on a diet and then go off because they see something which is so good. Well, the only thing that's going to whip imagination is imagination, positive imaginations. In my mind, I made those thousands of speeches all over the world. I rehearsed every word I was going to say. And one of the tragedies is that we could not film one of those presentations which I made in my mind. Folks, I'll tell you, if we could have filmed one of those, oh, you're talking about a presentation. Why, in these presentations I made in my mind, I had the audience sitting there in open-mouthed astonishment, amazed that any mere mortal could utter such incredible words of wisdom. Not once in my imagination in these speeches did I ever lay even one small egg. Everything was absolutely perfect. I mean, it was right on the button in every sense of the word. You've heard about people having people rolling in the aisle, some speaker or some comedian, you know. Listen, I had them rolling up and down the steps in my imagination when I made those speeches. And standing ovations, listen, my average standing ovation that I made or got as a result of those magnificent speeches I was making in my mind, my average standing ovation was 11 minutes long. Oh, I wish we could have filmed some of those, but ladies and gentlemen, let me issue a little word of warning. Be very careful about what you dream, especially if you write it down and put a date on it. If you list the obstacles you got to overcome in order to get there, if you identify the people, the groups, the individuals you need to work with, if you spell out what you need to know in order to reach your objective, if you devise a game plan in order to get there, and if you list what's in it for me, be very careful when you follow those steps. Because, ladies and gentlemen, every dream I've ever dreamed until just 3 years ago of any significance at all has already come to pass. Goals absolutely work, ladies and gentlemen, but you got to take the steps, you got to do the things, you got to follow the plan, you got to write it down, you got to believe. And finally, if you're going to reach your goals, you've got to clearly and very specifically understand what I say in 2 stories. Many years ago, a young sailor was at sea in the days of the sailing ship, and a squall was approaching, a small storm, and they sent him aloft to trim the sails. And as he was climbing aloft, he made the mistake of looking down, and the roll of the ship and the turbulence of the sea caused him to become slightly nauseated, and he started to lose his balance. And an old sailor underneath shouted up at him, "Look up, son, look up!" And the young man looked up, and he immediately regained his balance. What the message really says is when things don't look good in your life, you take a careful look and make absolutely certain you're not looking in the wrong direction. If the outlook isn't good, try the uplook, because it's always good. And finally, let me conclude with the story of Houdini. Houdini was the master magician. He also was the master locksmith. Made the boast he could get out of any jail cell in the world if you would let him walk in that jail cell with just his street clothes on. Well, a small town in the British Isles built a new jail. They were tremendously proud of it. They said, "Houdini, we don't believe you can get out of this jail. Come give us a try." Well, there's a lot of publicity, a lot of fanfare, and yes, Houdini was going to make a lot of money in the process too, and he liked all of those things, and the big day arrived. He strode confidently into that jail cell. He took his coat off as they closed the door behind him. Secreted in his belt was a 10-inch piece of steel. Very tough, very durable. He went to work on that lock. At the end of 30 minutes, that confident expression on his face had disappeared. At the end of an hour, he was literally drenched in perspiration. At the end of 2 hours, he literally, with exhaustion, collapsed against the door, which opened. Because you see, ladies and gentlemen, the door had never been locked. Now, the truth of the matter is, there might be some people who could temporarily stop you from reaching your goals, but you're the only one who can do it permanently. You see, Houdini's door was locked in his mind. That meant it was as locked as if every locksmith in Britain had put their best lock on the door. The reason we deal with the complete person in the Born to Win concept, the reason we spend as much time in all of the facets of it in the goal segment as we do, is because we want you to understand that you are a complete person. You were designed for accomplishment. You're engineered for success. You're endowed with the seeds of greatness. You can go anywhere you want to go. You can do what you want to do. You can be like you want to be. You can get the good things of life so long as you understand that you must not violate any spiritual or moral principles and invade or trample on the rights of others. By these ideas, do the things I've been talking about, and I'll close this presentation by saying, if you will, I can absolutely guarantee it, I will see you in more ways than you can at the moment imagine at the top.